Page 74, Santa Lucia. Very famous old melody. In this lesson, they're introducing you to the dominant seventh chord. Well, that sounds impressive. So let's see what it is. In the previous lesson, we already talked about the principal chords, the primary chords, the 1, the 4, and the 5. In C major, all the way keys, the 1 chord is built on step 1, the 4 chord is built on step 4, and the 5 chord is built on step 5. All right. Well, you also know that all those chords have names like tonic for the 1 chord, subdominant for the 4 chord, and dominant for the 5 chord. So here, the dominant seventh, we're talking about a 5 chord, a 5-7 chord. Now, what's this 7 all about? Hopefully, we've already talked about intervals. I can't remember, but just briefly. An interval is the distance between 2 notes. Let's take, for instance, this C to this C. The distance between them would be their interval. And I can figure it out real quick just by counting up. And the note I'm on is 1. We don't start with 0. It's 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that would be an interval of an eighth, also known as an octave. Well, they all work the same way. This is a 2, interval of a second, interval of a third, interval of a 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, blah, blah, blah. It works that way. Just stay within the key. Use only the notes within the key when you do this for now. So the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord. Well, they also have names. Remember, I covered the names briefly. The 1 chord is the tonic. The 4 chord is the subdominant. The 5 chord is the dominant. So we got the dominant part of this thing figured out. It's the 5 chord. Now what about the 7th? Well, it's simply an interval of a 7th. But it's not from the key. I don't go up 7 from C. It's an interval of a 7th from the bottom note in the chord. And when it's every other note, it's got to be arranged as every other note here. So I want to go up the bottom note. I want to add a 7th. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, you'll see it's still every other note. I'm going down here. And that's a 5-7 chord, or a dominant 7 chord, or a G7 chord, because it's every other note. Okay, dominant 7th chord. Now, we don't always use all the notes in the chord, because if we want a triad, we only use 3 of them. We got to leave a note out. Well, we need the top and bottom note, because that sort of identifies what the chord is. So we can leave out either of the 2 middle ones. And sometimes it's one, sometimes the other. It's whatever. Look in this music here. In the first line, second measure. In the left hand, you have a D, and then you have an F, G, and a B. Well, that is your dominant 7th chord. It doesn't look like it, but if I invert it, I put the F on here. You see I left out the D. I'm only using 3 notes. It's still a 5-7 chord, or dominant 7th, or G7 chord. Actually, I used the D, it was the first note. If I take them all in that measure, that's it. And you think, what chord is that? Well, turn it over and see if you can get every other note. So D on top, and then F on top. Now it's every other note. So now you can see it is a G7 or 5-7 chord, dominant 7th chord in the key of C. That's what we're talking about here. You get them a lot in music. Now there's different flavors of intervals, so we'll get into that later. But right now, just know we're staying within the key signature. We're only using the notes within the key of C major. So let's look at this Santa thing and see what's going on. It's 4 lines long. It's got repeat signs, so it's actually twice as long, but there's only 4 lines of music to deal with. Treble bass clef, no sharps or flat. We're in the key of C major. Do the C major scale and the A minor scale and the arpeggios like I've been yapping at you to do. Okay. 3/4 time signature. Let's do it one hand at a time, because the notes are getting trickier. If you look at the first measure, you'll see you're here and here. So it's like we're here, the thumb came down. For now, it's 1 and 2 and 3 and. I trust you understand dotted rhythms by now, but again, quarter notes on beat 1. The next dotted quarter note, well, that comes on beat 2. The dot after that quarter note, the second one, that comes on beat 3, because you're holding this down, and 3. So the 8th note comes on the and of 3, and. 1 and 2 and 3 and. 1 and 2. And then just come down. They want 1 and 5. You can if you want. They say measure 5 here. You don't want to be up in here. You got to do this. Here. I don't know how big your hands are. So if you can, the fingering in the book is fine if you can fit. And then measure 6, it's 3, 5. You just went down one. I want to connect these with the fingers. That's why I'm fingering it this way. And then going on, we got to move. If you're not sure what the notes are, spell out the chord. This is measure 7. That's an A. It's 2 ledger lines below. An A, and then a B, and then an F. Here, and then they want here. Here. That's fine. You can also go a 5 and 1. I do that too. So I can connect them. Don't have to. You can use 2 on both if you want. And then measure 9, you lift up and come up. And then these parallel thirds, it's an interval of a third, and it's going up or down. We call them parallel, they're traveling together. The notes are, they're one of the trickier things to do in piano. And fingering them, there are different fingerings for them. This is one of them shown in measures 8 and 9. You come down here, and then you got to keep going. Well, I'm using the thumb as my pivot. I'm coming over it, and 2 and 4. So I gotta let go of this note to come over, but I'm hanging on to that. Watch out on measure 11. Here, I'm at 1 and 3 again, because I need 2 for the F sharp. So there, the measure 13, here, and then here, and then here. I would prefer to use a 5 there for the last beat in measure 13, and a 3 here, because I want to use 2 for the next measure. I want here, 1 and 2, not 1 and 3, and that's because I got a D up here. I got to reach it. If it's a 3, that's hard to reach, so I'm going to use a 2. To connect the melody. That's what I'm after, although it's 2 note slur. And be careful of this bottom note. See, there's 2 voices here going on. You have the quarter notes. That's the bottom voice, and then the top note. The 2 voices are going on together, so hold the quarter notes down together, and then again, but now the bottom note's just an 8th note. That first D's by itself. And going on, I want a 1-4. It's the last 2 measures at the bottom. A 1-4, and then a 1-5. I want to connect the top note. It's the melody. And the last measure, I'm going to do a 1-5 and a 1-4. So I use those D's, the repeated notes. So I changed it from a 4 to a 5. So again, the last 2 measures is here, here, and then a 1-4, and then a 1-5. I'm connecting the top note. There, that's what I'm after. The idea with connecting is a couple things. One is it's safer, especially when you get nervous, because the fingers they got someplace to go. You're not jumping around. Where am I at now? You just kind of one finger leads into another and you're connecting things together. The other thing is I can feel the melody. I can't feel the melody very well when I'm using the same finger. It just does, it's just note, 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 note. But if I can use the different fingers, I can feel the flow a little better. I can feel the flow. So it helps to feel the melody. Not all teachers teach that. They would say, oh, 1/5 is fine. But I disagree. Left hand, we just got the chords. You got the C chord. You can do a 4-2-1 or a 5-3-1, however you want to do it. Just do it. The second measure, you don't need to move. You cover them all right there. And then the fourth measure, it's a 4-2-1 here, because I want to cover all 4 notes. And this is the fingering for the arpeggio, so this is what I'm going to use. Trying to connect this left hand as best I can. Now look at it on the third line down. This third measure, you're here. Here, you go up 1. You can go here and here if you'd like, if you got a big hands. 4, 1, and then a 2. Here, and then we put the hands together and see what kind of a mess we've got. It's here. And I'll hesitate, that's fine for now. So I go through and I put the hands together, and then I'll go back over it just a few measures or a line at a time or whatever, and get rid of the hesitations. So it's a steady beat. And once I do that, I'll think about the articulation. And this thing is pretty connected. You can lift up for the phrasing, but you almost have to anyway, because you got to move around. So here. Lift up. Lift up. Lift up. It's like every 2 measures is a phrase. Yeah. The left hand, you're basically doing chuck-chucks. Chuck-chuck. But don't play them short. No. Make them long. Pretend you can connect them even though you can't. Then once I have the articulation under control, the fermata at the bottom, the last here, you just hang on to that until it feels right and then you go on. With a metronome, I will double it, and I'll just hold it an extra count or so, because I got to stay with the metronome. Then once I have the articulation under control, I'll do the dynamics. It applies to the melody, which is the right hand, and the mezzo piano, and you're going to swell up the mezzo forte and back down. And the reason is that is the natural accent is the first beat of the measure. Come down. Stay there, calm down. Yeah. So do the dynamic. The left hand's just in the background. And then the speed is andante. It's a nice leisurely stroll. Just about where I've been going. Somewhere in there throughout. Now there's repeat signs, remember, so the repeat sign at the end of measure 8, you're going to go back and play the first 2 lines again. So you're going to play the first 2 lines twice. And then there's a repeat sign at the bottom that sends you back to the reverse repeat sign of measure 9. So you're going to play the last 2 lines twice. So the thing's twice as long as it looks. Now they've added pedal here, and we definitely need pedal to help us connect notes and for the overtones. It's going to make it a little prettier, more interesting. It's very dry this way. It's very dry. So the pedal will help us out. Exactly how do we pedal it, or where and where? Well, first we'll take the examples in the book and we'll try those out. If we don't like the sound of it for whatever reason, then we'll adjust the pedal, because these are just suggestions. Anything I tell you is a suggestion. Do what your teacher tells you while you study under them, but just know that other teachers might tell you different. So we'll start with the pedaling in the book. It's going to be lag pedal and legato pedal. I'm going to put the notes down first and then the pedal. I want to start the sound before I release the overtones. I'm going to change the pedal after I play the notes so it overlaps. I disagree with the idea of what they're doing like on the first line, second measure. They're not pedaling the third beat. I want to connect that left hand, this. You got to pedal it for that. So I'm not pedaling the first beat, but I am pedaling the second and third. Well, I'm pedaling right after I play the second half of the first beat. Same thing in measure 4. But I'm pedaling those and then going on. In measure 6, I don't want that. So I'm not pedaling again until the second beat. So I can connect it with the hands. Measure 9 here. Here we got a problem here because if I pedal has shown. It gets choppy, and I would like it all connected. If I pedal the whole measure, then it gets too blurry. So what do I do? I want it choppy or I want it blurry, somewhere in between. So what I can do is simply change the pedal on the last beat. I'll pedal it, but I'm going to change it. Second, or measure 10, change it here, so I don't get all of that. And I do pedal this because I want this to ring out a little longer. Otherwise it would be, this is too short. I want to connect it. So on these, I'm pedaling the first, like measure 9 and 11, I'm pedaling the first 2 beats together and then changing it for the third. But then on like measures 10 and 12, I'm pedaling the first beat and then I'm changing it on the second. So it depends on where, so it's a little weird. Measure 9, I pedal the first 2 beats together, then change. Now I'm going to pedal just the first beat and change. 2 beats now. What the music is doing, and then measure 13 they want it here, and they're saying pedal it all. That's too much for me. I don't want all that, so I'm going to change it on each beat so I keep this clean. And on the what is it, measure 15? I don't want that. I don't want all that. They're doing it so they can keep this note. But I don't want that. So I'm going to change it on the second beat. And leave it down and then change it on the next measure. I'm altering the pedaling a little bit to try and keep the melody clean, but I'm also trying to connect repeated notes, these repeated chords, whatever they are. I'm trying to connect those if I can. This is a fairly smooth piece. joining me, please. And remember the natural accents. 1, 2, 3. 1. You want to feel them. 1, 2. Feel the natural accents as you go through this. See if you can get into the melody. You may want to do some other stuff with the dynamics of the melody. You feel like the melody's doing something. To experiment with the melody and the dynamics and make it yours. Now at the end on this fermata, I disagree with the way they've done it. The right hand, they want you to hold here. Hang on to that. The problem is they want you to hold the left hand on the same beat. Here. And I disagree with that. I think the fermata for the bottom staff belongs on the last quarter note. And hold it out to match what the right hand is doing. And go on. And that's how I would recommend you do it. Put the fermata on the last note of that measure. Let's play this together slowly and check the notes and the rhythms. I'm not going to do the louds and softs, the dynamics. I'll do the pedaling as I suggested it. We will do the repeats. I'll give us 3 counts. 1, ready, go. Repeat.